From the National Newsroom of the Canadian Press, I'm Rob Westgate. Gaza's southernmost town of Rafah is bursting at the seams, being one of the few places spared by the massive Israeli offensive so far. That means its population is more than quintupled, with Palestinians streaming in to escape the fighting. Now, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has ordered the military to prepare a plan to evacuate the population as ground fighting is expected to ramp up. Despite the warning, this morning there are reports that 28 Palestinians have already been killed in Rafah during an Israeli airstrike. Meanwhile, the Syrian military says Israeli airstrikes have hit several sites on the outskirts of the country's capital, Damascus. Local state media says the strikes came from the direction of the Israeli-occupied Golan Heights, and air defenses shot down some, but added that those that landed resulted in some material losses. It was not clear if there were any casualties. Now back home, where some First Nations on the Prairies have filed proposed class action lawsuits against the federal government. They're accusing Ottawa of not keeping its end of the bargain over annuity payments after signing Treaty 4 nearly 150 years ago. The 1874 agreement covers much of southern Saskatchewan and a small part of southeast Alberta and west central Manitoba. During negotiations, Canada promised it would pay each man, woman, and child a $5 annuity each year, but the lawsuits allege that the government failed to increase those annuities in any way that maintains their value. Nova Scotia's Progressive Conservatives are holding their annual meeting today in Halifax. That meeting will focus on healthcare, with a roundtable being held involving 3 cabinet ministers. Healthcare has been the focus of the government since Tim Houston took power in 2021, and the Premier has followed up on a pledge to pour money into health services. However, the system is continuing to face challenges, with an estimated 150,000 Nova Scotians on a list indicating they're seeking a family doctor. Former U.S. President Donald Trump told thousands of members of the National Rifle Association that during his time as president he did nothing to curb guns. Campaigning in Pennsylvania at the NRA's Great American Outdoor Show, Trump also said the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives is anti-freedom.
4 more years of Joe Biden means 4 more years of anti-gun communists running the ATF.
The Republican presidential nominee pledged to continue to protect gun owners' rights, even as the country grapples with a crisis of gun violence and mass shootings that have left more than 3,000 dead since 2006. This is the Canadian Press. In sports, Emmanuel Quickley dominated with 25 points as the Toronto Raptors held off the Houston Rockets 107-104 Friday. The contest also saw the first return trip to Toronto by former star Fred VanVleet, who signed with Houston in the offseason. Over to the NHL, where the Edmonton Oilers dispatched the Anaheim Ducks 5-3, while the New York Rangers edged past the Chicago Blackhawks in overtime 4-3. In the NFL, we've got an update for you ahead of the big game on Sunday. The Kansas City Chiefs have ruled out All-Pro left guard Joe Thuney from the Super Bowl because of a pectoral injury he sustained in a divisional round of the playoffs. And finally, back to the ice, where Natalie Spooner opened the scoring on a power play 58 seconds into the third period as Canada won its 3rd straight contest, sending the rivalry series to a decisive 7th game, beating the United States 3-0 Friday night. From the Canadian Press, I'm Rob Westgate.